morning, everyone. Welcome, parents. I'm so excited that so many of you have signed up to be with us here tonight for the gratitude night, is what we'll call it. My name is Sheri Gazitt. I'm the founder of TeenWise, but more importantly, I'm a member of Balance in Mind. And Balance in Mind is a group of parents and professionals that we're working together to really find ways to prioritize mental wellness in the Lake Washington School District. And we've been very fortunate that the Lake Washington Schools Foundation has hopped on board to support us. So we're powered by the Lake Washington Schools Foundation. So thank you to all of us for joining us. We are in for a real treat tonight, and I'm going to give people a few minutes to hop on so that people don't miss out on the beginning here. But I'm just really excited for our guest tonight and super lucky that she was able to join us. She is from Texas, my home state. So I love her spunk and her spirit. And so I'm really happy that we have her on. So let me tell you who we have in store for you tonight. We have a gratitude scientist with us tonight. But this is not going to be boring. It's not going to be over your heads. We are going to have a really good time tonight and really find out some information that will be very useful to us as parents, as adults, and really will help us to guide our teens. So Stacy Danford has a master's in mind brain education, and she's going to bring the information down to a level and to a format that we can all really wrap our heads around, and no pun intended there, but really understand the information. We're going to be able to understand it, to enjoy it, and to implement it, all of those. And Stacy, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. This is my favorite subject in the whole wide world.
Hey, yeah, and I love brain stuff. So I love that we're talking about gratitude, but it's in a very scientific way. It's not just esoteric, just thinking about it. We're actually going to learn from you today how to be grateful.
That's right. And it's gratitude is so much different than what people think it is. So I'm so excited that we get to share that tonight.
Yes, that's definitely something we're going to touch on. But let me just ask you, let's start out by talking about how you got into the gratitude business.
It was actually from a teenager. So this is the perfect format. I taught school for 25 years before I started the gratitude business. And I had one of the hardest students I ever taught in 25 years. And he was terrible. He came into my room mad, he stayed in my room mad, and he left my room mad. And I had never had a student like that before. And so I asked my daughter, who was a teenager, I was like, what do you do to make somebody not be so mean? And she said, Mom, what do you know about him? And I said, well, I know he's mean, and I know he's a junior, and I know he hates everything. And she said, exactly. You don't know anything about him. And I was like, wow. And she said, Mom, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And I have never, ever forgotten. Yes, I have never forgotten those words. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, tell me, what do you mean? And she said, every day, find out something new about him until he finds out that you care. So the very next day I went back to school and I started saying something nice about him every day. And it was so hard because he was still terrible. Mm-hmm. And I remember the first day, the only thing I could think of was, I love the way you part your hair. He looked at me like I was crazy.
Right.
But every day I would say something, and I would struggle some days to find it. Well, after about 3 weeks, I noticed that he had a little bit of a smirk on his face when he came in. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's working. Well, it took about 3 months. And before he finally said something to me, and he said, hey, Miss D, what's up? And I was like, oh my gosh. And every day I just kept on and kept on and kept on. And regardless of how he acted, I continued to find one thing I liked about him every day. And I would ask him one question about, just something, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite music? Just crazy stuff. Well, after about 6 months, he became my very best student. And he would walk into my class with a smile and he would leave my class with a frown. And I noticed that he didn't want to leave and he would want to eat lunch in there and he wanted to stay in there. And he didn't act this way for any of the other teachers, and they hated him. He was terrible. He ended up, getting in big trouble and ended up leaving our school at the end of the year. But I stayed in contact with him for the rest of his high school. And I would send, messages with a friend, like, tell Andrew I'm thinking about him, and tell him Miss Danford said hi. Well, he would text me back and say, thanks for sending me good luck, Miss Danford. You're the only one that does.
Aww.
So when he went off to college, I still kept texting him, and I said a prayer for you today. Just want you to know I'm thinking about you. I'm sending you a smile from far away. Well, he ended up going to rehab and had a really rough time, but he always kept in contact with me. Mm-hmm. And many years later, he invited me to go to lunch one day. And while we were eating, I said, Andrew, tell me why you treated me so much different than everybody else. And he said, Miss Danford, you smiled at me every time you saw me, and you made me feel like you were grateful I was alive. And wow. I was like, wow. And it still almost makes me cry. And I was like, what? And a smile and that was the first time I'd ever heard the word gratitude used like that. Mm-hmm. And I went home the very next day and started researching everything I could find about smiling and gratitude, and found out there's actually a science in both of those. And I decided to go back to school and get a master's degree in that very thing. And it was all because of the worst student I ever taught, who I still talk to this very day.
That's so amazing, Stacy. And like, say that the quote that your daughter said, it's not about how much you know, but
yeah, she said, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yes, so true. We need to remember that as parents, because a lot of times we like to go into lecture mode and say, look at all my wisdom, let me impart it upon you. But that's not what's important to our kids. They want to know that we care about them on the emotional level, not just about their grades and about their achievements, but about them as people and emotional human beings. Yeah.
And a teenager, she taught me too that, what do you know about him? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know anything. And I think sometimes parents and adults miss that about a teenager, is mm-hmm. What do you know about me? Do you know my favorite color? Do you know my favorite food? Do you know why I like long hair or short hair, or why I like purple tennis shoes, or, mm-hmm. Do you know about me and what makes me tick?
Right. And I think it's important that we as parents assume we know our kids, but as they're growing and getting older, their interests change, their preferences change. So we have to continue to ask those questions so that we continue to know our kids.
Right. And the research, especially the newer research from neuroscience, shows that that's where the great divide comes between the tween years and the teen years, as parents feel like they know their children. And we do know our children, but the brain is changing in such massive amounts through those teenage years that they don't even know themselves. So what worked for your child does not work for your teenager. Mm-hmm. And so we think that we're trying the same things. And well, they used to love, chicken fried steak, or they used to love when I sang to them, and they all of a sudden they don't anymore. Yeah. And we, out of not knowing what to do as parents, get frustrated. Well, when two people are frustrated together, the energy of those two brains actually like collides, and it creates this, chasm of anxiety. And it's in our effort to love them, but we don't realize that they changed, and we have to change the way we love them.
Mm-hmm. And I think all parents can relate who have tweens and teens that feel that brain friction, as we'll call it. You're like, where is this coming from? And we have this emotional reaction to our kids that we don't have to other people in the universe. So we have to kind of watch that. So let's dive into gratitude. So what is the difference between gratitude and just saying thanks?
That's what my research study was about, is the difference between casual thanks and scientific gratitude. And casual thanks is just saying thank you, when the person opens the door for you, or the lady at Starbucks when she hands you your coffee, and when you just say thank you. And that's more out of manners and obligatory, feelings that you owe someone a thank you because they held the door open. But that does nothing for your brain. However, we all notice when people don't tell us thank you. And, you know, if the Starbucks lady gives us our coffee and we don't say thank you, you know, she's like, golly, you know, rude. Or if we hold the door open for somebody and they walk through and we look at them like, hello, you know, I just opened it for you. So ingratefulness, or an ingrate, is actually the lowest quality that people recognize that they despise in another person. And it's funny how that's we can't stand when people aren't grateful, but we don't actually know how to be grateful. Mm-hmm. So scientific gratitude is finding something that you are thankful for, but then holding that thought in your mind from 10 to 30 seconds. So it's long enough to savor it, just like good food. And it goes through the cognate networks in your brain long enough to release chemicals. So you can still be grateful for the Starbucks lady, but when you hold the coffee, you know, find something that you're grateful for and just think about it. You know, I always am grateful for, you know, the warmth of a coffee, and I always tell everybody that coffee reminds me of my granny. And because my granny was my warmest, safe place when I was a kid, and she was my hero. And the feeling of warm coffee always reminds me of the feeling of my granny. And it reminds me of the way she smelled. And so every single morning when I drink my coffee, I never do it without being grateful for the feeling of the warmth. And I always, you know, say thankful to my granny who's passed away many years ago. But I remember that love. And so it's created this connection in my brain from coffee and love and my granny. Because every time you hold a thought for 30 seconds or longer, it creates a pathway that locks in your brain. So when you hold that, the next time you're thankful for that, your brain says, oh, I know what we do. We dump out endorphins or dopamine or all those feel-good chemicals for coffee. All right, you did it last time, I'll do it again. So it creates a whole connection in your brain of chemicals, which are what people, you know, take antidepressants for, is to get those same chemicals. And coffee can do the very same thing.
So it's more than just, oh, I'm grateful I have this cup of coffee. You're actually creating an emotional connection and perhaps a memory that's deeper than just the coffee in your hand.
Yeah. And you have to think of the why that you're grateful, because, like, I brought my brain. So when I have a brain, when you are recalling the memory of why you're grateful, people don't realize they're using a massive portion of the prefrontal cortex to remember why. Because most people say, I love coffee. But if you say why, they're like, I don't know, it tastes good. But why does it taste good? Oh, I love the warmth going down my throat, or I love the feeling of the cream at the top. All of those use different parts of the brain, because the taste of the cream, the feeling of warmth. So you use all of these areas of the brain. Well, every time you use a new area, like a little light bulb, it starts releasing a signal for you. So the more reason that you can think of why you're grateful, the more brain lights up and the more happy chemicals you'll get out of that.
Right. And does that also correlate to how long you kind of sit there and contemplate it? You're saying 10 to 30 seconds.
Yes. And 10 to 30 seconds is plenty. And, you know, because I have some people that think if a little does a little good, a lot will do a lot of good. Right. And they'll think, oh, I held it for like 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not going to hurt you, but it's not any more beneficial than about 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's just awesome that it doesn't have to be some huge thing. When we think of being grateful, there's two thoughts that I hear. One is just write down 5 things really quick every day that you're grateful for, but that's not going deep enough. That's just very surface level. And the other thing is people feel like it has to be like these big things, like, you know, bigger than a cup of coffee, but it really doesn't.
It doesn't. And matter of fact, the new research shows that people who make these lists of gratitude, which when it first came out, that was the go-to thing, you know, and you'd make 10 things every day. They now know that that actually causes a backfire in the brain, and it's causing people to be less grateful. And the newest research is very clear on when something becomes a burden to the brain, it releases chemicals we don't want. So cortisol and norepinephrine and other chemicals that when something becomes a burden to you, then it's attaching signals of it being a burden. So when you have to make 10 things before you go to bed, your brain's like, oh, I'm tired. I don't want to do that tonight. So it starts attaching gratitude to a negative feeling.
And yeah, I've heard that actually from teens, because there were a lot of kind of therapist coaches trying to get their teens to do these gratitude journals. And this one teenager told me one time, I don't like it because some days I don't feel like being grateful. And I feel like if I don't have this list of 5 things, that I'm a bad person somehow.
Right. And that is actually does a really disservice to a teenager's brain, because the emotions are so heightened as a teenager. When you decide you dislike something as a teenager, chances are you will still dislike that thing at age 40 and 50. So it's very important to create a positive feeling of gratitude and make it easy and make it fun and make it be a positive experience, because those are the things that change your life as an adult. And we don't want to attach, something good to all these negative chemicals in a teenage mind.
Right. And I think the other piece is there's a very big difference, especially of doing this right before bedtime, and doing it throughout the day. You've mentioned, you and I've talked about this before, when you're doing this, it's spitting out dopamine. And how many hours did you say it lasts when you get this kind of hit from gratitude?
If you do it first thing in the morning, when you're in the sweet spot of the brain waves, it can last up to 6 hours in the brain. But for sure, even a simple, thank you for the Starbucks lady, that lasts almost 30 full minutes of a high level of serotonin or dopamine, depending on, how your thoughts are.
Yeah. So it seems to me, it's much better to be doing this throughout the day than to do a list at the end of the day when you're about to go to bed anyway.
Yes, for sure. And like in our house, like I have a tween son, and, I don't ever make him do it because, I've read the research and I'm so afraid that he's going to not like the thing that I've dedicated my life to. But, when he gets home from school, and I'll wait and, until he's had a snack or whatever. And I'll always say, tell me something you did nice for somebody today. And, and he'll have to think a little bit, and he'll go, oh, I held a door open for a girl in a wheelchair. And I said, that's so nice. I bet she was so grateful that you did that, because it would be hard to open a door in a wheelchair. So I throw the word in while he's mentioning something that he feels is a good quality about himself that day. And some days he'll say, I don't know if I did anything nice to somebody today. And he said, does that mean I'm bad? And I said, no, because this morning you waved at me on the way to school and you did something nice for me. You just didn't realize it. So I don't ever want to attach it to it being something he has to do to be good. But I noticed that the more I throw it in for him, that, oh my gosh, I bet your teacher's so grateful to have somebody like you on the front row who loves to answer her questions, to associate it with something positive in his head.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast today. It's one of the psychology podcasts, and Dr. Demore, who wrote Under Pressure, was on there. And she was talking about how teens and tweens really get a bad rap these days, and we don't give them enough credit for the things they do. And really, they don't get enough gratitude for being who they are. So it kind of fits along with this.
For sure. And the research shows that where children absorb the most gratitude is from their parents. And so, they get it from their friends or, whatever, but they don't absorb it the same way as they do from the person who loves them. And when parents tell them that they're grateful for them, and they do a quality rather than an award, if you're the superhero of the football team, or, the first chair in the whatever, those are things everyone else is grateful for. But when you are grateful for a quality that your child has, the research shows that really raises their self-esteem. It creates a bond between the person who offered that quality as something to be looked up to. So, just the little things like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful, that I have you as a son, because you always, wave at me in the morning, and it makes me so happy that you still, are proud that I'm here dropping you off. And, and I know that those times are short-lived for now, but I want him to realize that is a quality I noticed about him that wasn't the A honor roll or, anything like that.
Right. So key, which is a great segue to the next question that I have for you. Okay. So our teens are really struggling. This generation is struggling with anxiety and depression. And in our area, Stacy, we have been hit with about 5 or 6 suicides of teens in the last 6, 7 months. It's been quite devastating. And it circles back to anxiety and depression. So I'm wondering, is this like the whole idea of gratitude and bringing that into our lives as families? Will this help us to combat this anxiety and depression that we're up against?
Yes. And the research actually shows that it is a very big help in fighting both anxiety and depression. Because in neuroscience, anxiety and depression are two ends of the same spectrum, and they're part of the same neurological connections. Depression tends to be ruminating over the past, and anxiety tends to be ruminating over the future. But neither of them are focusing on the now. So when kids are depressed, it's feeling of they didn't do something, oh, I should have done this, or I wish I would have not cut my hair, or, oh my gosh, I wish I would have practiced more, Then anxiety is, what if I don't make the football team? Or, oh my gosh, what if I don't make cheerleader? Or what if nobody sits by me at lunch? So they're focusing here and here. What gratitude does is make you focus on what you have right now. So right now I have the cup of coffee. Right now I'm sitting next to my best friend at lunch. Right now I feel like I look beautiful in my brand new shirt my mom got me. Right now I'm on the way, to get a pedicure with my mom. But helping them focus on the now pulls those brain waves back from being anxiety or in depression and helps them focus on now. So anytime a parent can help them focus on what they have right now, it is going to help pull those brain patterns back to the mid ground, which is where you want. But if you see that they are anxious or depressed, when you say, if people say all the time, you need to think about what all you've got, or you need to be grateful for what you've got. That is not good to say, because what that does is dismiss their feeling, and they're realizing, oh, I can't trust you with my feelings because you're not understanding what's going on. So the best way to pull them out of anxiety or depression is to get them to say why they are feeling that way. So it's just the same in the brain as it was with gratitude. When you have to answer the why, you're pulling in all different areas of your brain, which are keep pulling it away from the cortisol, which is releasing in these two negative areas. And you want, why are you sad? And most of the time they'll say, well, I don't know, or I don't want to talk about it. And I say to my son, that you have the right to tell me you don't want to talk about it. And I understand, because there's things I don't want to talk about. But here's what I see. I see that you're sad, and that bothers me because I'm your mom. And I want you to remember that, I think you're the coolest kid in the world. And I don't know what's happening at school today, but remember, this is only one day in the rest of the year. So help them see that you acknowledge their feelings, but remind them of all the qualities that you see in them that else didn't see.
So it's not about,
I think I froze.
Tell me why you're grateful. It's more about, we as parents can offer up what we are grateful for and about them.
For sure. And when they see that we're grateful for things where they didn't win the ball game and they weren't the first chair, and they didn't make the A honor roll, and we can still be grateful, it reminds them they can be grateful for themselves on days when they weren't, the greatest person they could be either. Right. Because today, our children, our teenagers especially, are in research we call the no man's land. Like, we have never had a group of teenagers like the teenagers right now. And because all of our generations, even Gen X parents, we did not have global communication. Right. If we wanted to communicate with someone, we had to call them on the phone, or we might have a pen pal. But either way, we knew those people, because today's teenagers feel connected to people globally that they don't know. It's like putting, meat in front of a piranha, and, you're just being bombarded from everywhere. And when they say, you don't understand the pressure I'm under, we really don't. And when we dismiss that pressure, we're doing a disservice to them, because they don't know how to handle it. And we've never had to handle it. So we're treading into water with the sharks because we don't know either. And it is really and truly the hardest time in the world ever to be a teenager.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They're just now starting to do a lot of research on how much information can one person handle in a day, because they are being bombarded with information from their cell phones, from the computer, from their teachers, from friends, and it's like packed into them. Whereas it might have taken us 2-3 years to get the amount of information our kids are getting these days. So it is a whole new world and we don't understand it. And while our kids may have, cool shoes and, the food they need and a house and all that stuff, it's different things that they're up against. So we don't know that much about yet.
Right. And it's a scary research area too, because we don't even know what we're researching, because we just know that the epidemic for, suicide in the teenage world and teenagers on medication is tripling. And, everybody was so excited because teenage pregnancy has gone way down, but suicide and all these other things are going way up. And it's I think an epidemic of, no one understands me. We all feel that way as a teenager. Like, nobody gets me, but we really don't get them. And we can't even put ourselves in their shoes because we ourselves were never in their shoes.
Right. That's very true. Yeah. And you brought up about the decrease in pregnancy. This is like the best behaved set of teenagers in, like, as far as recorded history. Like they're drinking less, they're doing drugs less, they're waiting to have sex, they're having fewer sexual partners. If they are having sex, they're using contraception. I mean, their, study habits, they're through the roof. So all of that is looking good on paper, but when we go back to the anxiety, depression, and the levels of suicide, that is not good. So we have to really figure out, get curious about how can we help them, because, they're our responsibility.
Right. And both of those things are all based on chemicals in the brain. And, anxiety is one set of chemicals and depression is another. But that's what gratitude does, is alter the chemicals. And it's always about the chemicals. Even for us, when we feel excited or we had a chemical shift. And when we feel sad, we've had a chemical shift. And so, the best way to know what your chemicals are doing is take a look at how you feel. If you feel good, you can rest assured that your brain is releasing good chemicals. If you feel bad, you can be sure that it's releasing bad chemicals. Even, because when you're sick, those are very different chemicals than when you're excited or when you exercise or you hear your favorite song. And, there's lots of little tips like that parents can do to change their children's chemicals. And there's, 4 or 5 really quick things that they can do to alter their children's chemicals when they're in a bad mood. And it's so important to get those chemicals in the first few minutes, because once they sit in there, they start seeping through the rest of the body and start, changing lots. If you can catch them early, it's great.
Right. I just want to take a quick break and tell everybody who's listening in that there is a chat bar. So if you want to ask any questions as we're talking here, if you go to the bottom of your screen and kind of hover over there, it says chat box, and you can type it in and we can relay those questions to Stacy. So just wanted to mention that. All right. So like you, Stacy, I love brains. I know it's weird, but I have one sitting on my desk too. And one thing I know is that you talk about the lizard brain, right? And I want you to share that with the people who are with us tonight, because I think it's fascinating.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And I have my lizard. They took him in the airport and took him into security and ran him through a whole x-ray. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
It's so funny. But, okay. So the lizard brain, people talk about that all the time. And they actually say that the people miscommunicate it a little bit when they say the amygdala is part of the fight or flight. That's actually not the lizard brain. That's right above the lizard brain. So this area right in here is the emotional brain, where all of our emotions are. But this area here is the lizard brain. And it's like a lizard's tail. But in this area right here is something called the reticular activating system, which has kind of become a little bit of a buzzword lately too. And it is the thing, it's like a giant filter for your brain. So if you think of like, you know, the screen on your window, a filter, you know, keeps certain things out like leaves and bugs, but it lets certain things in like the air. Well, our reticular activating system, or our lizard, tells us what we can let in and what we don't let in. So when your lizard is thinking about how terrible you are and how ugly you are and how stupid you are, your lizard cannot think. So it only knows what your brain is wiring together. So if every day I'm wiring in how ugly I am, how stupid I am, you know, all of those things, then your reticular activating system is only going to let those things in. So it's like a filter that all your ugly comes in, because you've told your lizard, this is what is important to me. And it's so crucial to realize that your lizard cannot think, but it learns. It learns what things you reconnect every day. And so it says, oh, that's important to her. I'll let that in. But that's how gratitude changes your lizard, is because the more you start to look for gratitude, the more your lizard says, oh, that's what we're letting in now. I'll let more of that in. And all of my clients tell me like, oh my gosh, it was so crazy. Like this week I saw 20 things I was grateful for. They're everywhere. And they were always everywhere. You just now have been able to filter them through and are able to see them. And it works like a little magic thank you for your brain that, you know, your lizard does what you tell it. Mm-hmm. And we only have 7 spots of working memory in our brain at one time. And we are hit with about, 2,000 bits of information per millisecond. And we only hold about 7 of those. And how we determine those 7 is what we tell our lizard to hold on to.
Right. And so that's like our memories and our stories from childhood are playing into what that filter is.
Yes.
So that also means that, we really form a lot of patterns in middle school and high school for the rest of our lives. So if we can get to our teens early and help them to create this new filter for themselves, then it will really affect them for the rest of their lives.
For sure.
This is not just 30 seconds of gratitude. This is so much more than that.
Yes. And that's what, 30 seconds a day can absolutely change your lizard, and your lizard will change your life. Mm-hmm. And, we think we have to do some big thing to alter the way we think and the way we function, but we really don't. It's consistency that matters. Mm-hmm. And the consistency of daily gratitude in some form is what changes the way that your lizard puts your connections together, and the connections change the chemicals, and the chemicals change your life.
Right. Okay. We're going to take some of the questions, Stacy, and you and I together will answer these. Okay. So someone has asked how to recognize if it's depression, suicidal state, or a manipulation.
Usually if someone is mentioning suicide at all in any form, I would always take that seriously. Because even though they are doing it as a manipulation, sometimes the fact that they are using that as their form of manipulation is a sign that there's too much cortisol and norepinephrine, and there's too much of it in your brain. Because people that are happy don't ever say that. And the chemicals of happiness would never cause someone to say that. I would manipulate you to buy me some new shoes, but I would never manipulate you to think that I might kill myself. So I would always take that seriously.
Right. And even if I think what this parent probably means by manipulation is, are they serious, or are they trying to get attention? And if that is the means that they're using to get attention, then there's something pretty serious going on. Now I will say, if your child is talking about it, bringing it up in any way, you want to ask them some more questions about this. So preface it, make sure they know you're not angry, that you're concerned. So what I will say to my kids and the clients that I coach, I'll say, I'm going to ask you a question because I really care about you. Are you having thoughts of hurting yourself or killing yourself? And then if they say yes, then I will ask them a qualifying, I'll say, have you thought about how that would happen? And then you kind of ask and see how serious they are. Even if they're like, oh, it was a fleeting thought, it's something you should bring up to the pediatrician for sure and take it seriously.
Yes. And people that I deal with a lot of cutters, and that self-inflicted pain is really just a way to relieve their brain pain, because physical pain is much easier to tolerate because you know what caused it and you know how to fix it. And it is actually a relief to the social pain that you're dealing with. So anytime somebody is in that much pain, there's pain in here that they're not being able to process and get out.
And just for those of you who aren't familiar with that term, a cutter is someone who is doing self-harm. It's usually a lot of girls, and now boys have kind of started doing this too, is they will use a sharp object and cut themselves. It's not a big enough cut. Like, they're not trying to die by suicide. They are doing something, as Stacy said, to inflict pain so that it's a relief. They're no longer focusing on emotional pain. They're focusing on the physical pain. So you'll often see this on the wrist, inner thighs, on the ankles, and then other forms of self-harm, or like, you know, burning themselves somehow. So that's kind of that's what Stacy means by cutter, if you didn't know what that meant. Okay. All right. So there's another question here. You mentioned there are 5 things you can do to immediately help a kid change their chemical levels. What are these 5 things?
Okay. The first one is music. And if you know what kind of music your children like, I have a little Alexa playlist. And so in the morning, if my son's in a grumpy mood, then I'll say, Alexa, play, and I name it something so it doesn't sound like his playlist. I don't want to say it. And, but like, Alexa, play the pancake list or whatever. And so it always changes your brain chemicals. So music is a definite mood shifter, but you need to make sure that it's peppy music, because, in Texas, of course, I like country music, but I realize that country music brings my chemicals down, and, heavy metal and stuff like that will always bring it in an anxiety state. So there's that middle ground of that fun, happy stuff that they love. Movement is number 2, easiest way. And so, your kids are not going to get up and, want to go do jumping jacks or whatever, but I'll say, hey, I'll arm wrestle you. Whoever loses have to do dishes or whatever. And so it just gets him doing some kind of movement or giggling or whatever. I'll say, I'll race you to the backyard, loser takes the trash out. So any kind of movement at all uses the motor cortex of your brain, which pulls the blood flow out of that emotional state and changes the way your blood flows. Humor is another one. Humor is awesome. We have on all of our phones, we've got our, YouTube funny stuff. And so when I see he's in a grumpy mood, or if I'm in a grumpy mood, I'll just, I have my little playlist on YouTube of things that always make me laugh. So some people like dog videos, the goat yoga, whatever it is. If it's some comedian you like, your kids will probably have a separate one, but watch them and notice what they laugh at. And, say, oh, I saw this video today. I thought you might like it. But if you ask them, please watch this, they're not going to do that. But
yeah, and let me say on that one, Stacy, we have to be careful. If the humor is coming from us and they are in a bad place, they may not be responsive. So if you notice, Stacy's talking about a third party, right? A YouTube video or something, not like Stacy's making fun of them or being comical herself. Sometimes that'll work, but you got to know your kids, because sometimes that makes them spiral.
Worse, right. And this is, my husband is an Aggie, and so he tries to throw in that dad humor, and I'm like, there's a time that does not work. Right. So it has to be what is funny to them. Yes. So in what music they like. So you got to take yourself out of the picture. Right. The 4th thing is a smile, and it's so crazy, but if you can ever get them to smile. And my son knows, like, every morning in the carpool lane, I don't know about what y'all have there, but do y'all have like a drop off and pick up? It's not my favorite. So I have a popsicle stick or a pencil in my car at all times. And if you'll shove a pencil to the very back of your mouth.
That's how you work carpool line.
Yes, I drive through the carpool just like that, because the lady is so mean. She reminds me of the Trunchbull from that movie Matilda. She's awful, awful. But your face is you have 43 cranial muscles that are directly connected to cranial 7 in your brain. And so when these muscles go all the way up like that, if you jam the pencil way to the back, your brain doesn't know the difference between that fake smile and a real smile. So it starts dumping in dopamine, and you will laugh. And even if you're mad, I make myself do it when I'm mad. And what's funny is you don't want to. You're like, I don't want to put that pencil in there. And I'll, and it crunches up all these, and your face thinks it's smiling. So it starts, dumping in the chemicals, and it's hilarious too.
Oh, there's a new game that's out on the market that people love. And it's this weird thing. You put this thing in your mouth, like they put in the dentist almost, that makes your mouth go like that. So just putting that in your mouth makes everybody happy.
Yes. And then the last thing that is, I would get your kids to create a happy list. And we all have at our house our own happy list, and it's a list of 5 things that always make you happy, and they cannot involve another person. So especially moms, we always want, oh, what makes you happy? Oh, when I hear my children laugh, or it cannot do that, because if it requires someone else, you're not in charge of your own happiness. So like mine is, I love cold chocolate, and I really don't even like chocolate, but I love cold chocolate. It perks me up every time. I love a good smelling candle. So I go to TJ Maxx every week and I buy 2 new candles, and I leave them lit all week long. And so know those things about your kids and ask them, what always makes you happy? Is it, flaming hot Cheetos? Is it, whatever it is? And have those 5 things on standby. And, it can't be something you have to go buy, or, a hot air balloon ride, or, it has to be like simple things. But my son, loves his dog, and he always says, Buzzer is on his list. And so sometimes if I know he's sad, but he's told me he doesn't really want to talk about it right now, and I always respect his time to process, but I'll send the dog in his room, and, and I'll know he'll come out in about 15 minutes and with the dog, and it changes his mood just enough to change the chemicals just for a little bit. So listen to what they say, and you'll be able to find out what their things are.
Right. Okay, next one. How is it best to deal with kids who are anxious and upset about moving to a new city and changing schools?
Yeah, that's a hard one. For one, be very understanding of the fact that is difficult. And one of the best ways for us to teach our kids how to behave is to give them examples of a time when we were anxious or scared, when we had to go somewhere new. And I remember when we moved to this town, and my son went to a new school, and I said, oh my gosh, I remember when I started teaching at a new school, and it was so scary, and I didn't feel like I knew the rules, and I didn't, know any of the people, and I was afraid I wasn't going to wear the right stuff and fit in. And he was like, oh, you felt like that too? And I said, yeah, I still do. And so I said, what can we do to make that better? And he said, well, I just don't want to know. I don't want to not know where to go. And so we made a plan to go to the school, I called, and got us a map, and we walked around. The teachers let us walk around. And so that eased that part of their, so just knowing specifically what they're afraid of. If it's, I'm not going to fit in, well, maybe, they could register for some kind of Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, or, I don't know, karate, something so they can fit in. Maybe it's the fact they don't know what clothes to wear. Find out exactly what it is. If you can ease any of their pieces of anxiety, it pulls that much of the big pile of anxiety away. But they're looking at you to understand, please let me feel this way, and please know why. And they may not even be able to tell you why, but just telling them about a time you felt that way makes them not feel like a weirdo.
Right. And the example you gave, Stacy, you weren't giving like a half an hour of your story. You were like, it was a few sentences. And that's important, because if you do make it all about you, then they're like, oh, never mind. This is mom. Here's the story. And so it's really important when you are bringing in your own experiences that you kind of keep it short so that it's not all about you. Okay. Let's see. How do you respond or talk to a teen who is stressing out or breaking down? So in the middle of a breakdown, we all hear about these, and they're in the reptilian brain, so not responsive to solutions or suggestions, and often comfort, physical or verbal. So how can we break through that reptilian response? You go first, and then I'll tell my answer.
Okay. I would say the number one thing you need to know is your child's love language. And because that is crucial to understanding what will help them out of their moment of whatever. Like, I know my son his is physical touch. And even when he was a little boy, he would he'd poke me or whatever. So watch what they do. And that is probably their love language. But you have to be very careful about, I can't just go hug him or, whatever. I'll just pat him on the back and say, I know that you're having trouble right now. And when you calm down just a little bit, I'd love to talk to you. Or if you don't want to talk and you just want to go to, Dairy Queen and get an ice cream, I'm here for you. They're really and truly just wanting to know you won't leave and you're going to be there for them and that you're going to be the person that they hope you'll be. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, a bunch of my clients, the teenager and the parent end up clashing. And I always say they will beat you at being a smart aleck and they will beat you at being pouty and moody, and because they're in the prime of those years. And right. Somebody's got to be the grown up and they're praying it'll be you.
Right. That's absolutely true. They're looking to us to see how we deal with these situations. One thing also in the question was, when they're in the middle of that breakdown, how do we, and they're not responsive to solutions or suggestions, that's key. Like, when they are emotional, their logical brain is offline. So you can't try to offer suggestions and solutions at that point. And it's also important to not try to just move them along through this emotion. Just let them have that emotion, because the more you're pushing to get them out of it, the more that they're going to fight back. It's like, I have the right to feel like this. Why are you pushing me through it? So instead of trying to be logical and talk it out while they're having this, reptilian moment, let's say, you're just there for them and not trying to fix it, not trying to push them through. And so I think that's important for us to know that.
And that's what you said, the perfect thing too. When they're in this emotional state right in here, their brain, it's almost like a little seizure in their brain. It's just firing all kinds of stuff. And they really and truly cannot think. This is your thinking area up here. And they've tested teenagers around the globe. They've tested prisoners, and they'll say, why did you do that? And they'll say, I don't know what I was thinking, or I wasn't in my right mind. They really weren't, because when you are in a heightened emotional state, it blocks the blood flow from this prefrontal cortex, which is your reasoning, practical thinking center. And so you cannot reason with a teenager when they're in an emotional frenzy. And all it does is make you mad. It makes the situation worse. So just realize when they're saying dumb things and, making crazy, accusations or whatever, they're really not in their thinking brain, and just give them time to let the blood flow come back.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay. This is an interesting question. Is the willingness to get tattooed a form of self-harm or a symptom of depression?
I would say neither. Really and truly, it has definitely changed in my generation, especially in my older children's generation. It's almost become a form of identity. And, it's kind of like how people used to color their hair or, wear leather or whatever. And truthfully, the more Gen Xers and baby boomers push against it, the more millennials and in the new generation are pushing for it, because it's a symbol of you don't get me. And it's almost their fight to be heard. And I have grown children. I have a 30-year-old and a 26-year-old and then a 12-year-old. But my grown children, when they came and said, Mom, I want to get a tattoo. And I was like, oh God, because I'm thinking in my head, it's going to affect your job situation. And your boss is probably going to be a boomer or a Gen Xer, and they're not going to like that. And I said, tell me why you want that. And he said, well, I just think it's cool. And it makes me, feel like I get to say my identity without talking. And it's my older son who's kind of shy. And I said, oh, okay, I understand that, but could maybe I give you a piece of advice? And he was like, yeah, sure. And I said, would you put a short sleeve shirt on and draw a line right here? And maybe if you put your tattoos above that, when you went in for a job interview, it wouldn't affect you. And he was like, that was a good idea, Mom. Mm-hmm. So because I respected his reason for wanting one, which was, I still was like, oh, you know, it wasn't my greatest thing, but because I respected him, he respected me. And, you know, we came to a middle ground. Right. And I just think it's our generations, we don't particularly understand it the way they do, but we got to remember we did things probably our parents were like, oh, you know, don't do that either.
For sure, for sure. There's one type of tattooing I would look out for that could potentially be in the self-harm realm. And that's when kids are doing tattooing at home sometimes. Oh, yeah. You'll see a lot of it happening. And I think sometimes that might be a form of self-harm, but I wouldn't say definitely it always is. But that's just something to look out for when they are just, you know, constantly sticking themselves and just using the ink with it. Might check into that one.
Yeah. And I'd say that would be a big form of rebellion, and I'll show you, I'll just do it at home. And they're saying something without actually saying it, if that's right. What they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Not related, but Stacy's jewelry is fabulous.
Thank you.
Yeah, we wanted you to know that they are grateful for your jewelry. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Somebody said these are great tips. Here's another question here. My kid is not sad, but always angry. Do you have any tips to handle his anger?
A lot of the times anger, and I know people don't want to hear this, but technology, though we love it, it has actually caused a continual dopamine hit in the brain. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like a Pavlovian syndrome. Like we know something is fixing to change on the screen. And so it's caused our brain to get in like a dopamine frenzy, which mm-hmm. even though that's a good thing, it actually can, you know, be hurtful when there's too much of it. They are linking it to heightened states of anger and frustration. So if somebody is constantly angry and agitated and frustrated, I would try to think of ways to get them removed, you know, from whatever it is that's upsetting them. And of course, they're going to say it's not their electronics, and you just don't understand. You know, I hear that all the time. And I'll say, okay, well, how about maybe could you put it in your pocket and let's go like for a walk, or could you take the dog for a walk, or hey, do you want to go to the park, or, you know, let's go play Foursquare, or, you know, do something that can remove them from whatever it is that's agitating them, even if it's one of those 5 things, because just pulling them out of it just long enough to change the chemicals will also change those connections in their head.
Yeah. And even something, I don't know where I heard this, maybe you and I were talking about this, but if you can change somebody's temperature by 10 degrees, like if you go out into the cold, which right now up here is pretty cold, even that can help. And with the anger and with the sadness, and or if somebody is in a breakdown, meltdown state, just, you know, taking them outside for a few moments, not as punishment, not like go outside, you're in trouble, you know, but maybe let's take a walk to the mailbox, or, you know, go outside with the dog, something like that. That can be helpful. Okay, we're running out of time, so I got to talk fast. Okay, all right. Are there certain colors, sounds, food, etc., that bring out the same chemicals as gratitude, which will help the process along?
It actually is I wrote a whole blog about that one time, about the neuroscience of color. And you know, it affects people very differently, but red and orange tend to raise people's state. And that's why most, and we have Tex-Mex, you know, most of the Texas Mexican food areas are painted the orange and red because you eat more. Yellow kind of tends to be kind of in a middle ground. Sometimes it agitates. Any colors that they love, however, will be calming to them. So my son's room right now is painted, I think it's a hideous purple. It's a really dark purple, and it's too dark for me. I get depressed when I walk in there, but he loves it. And this was his big boy tween room, and I let him pick it out. And you know, he said if he could paint it the color he wanted, that he would keep it clean, and he has absolutely kept his word. And so I would, you know, think about what they love, because what they love is releasing chemicals in their brain, and their brain is different than your brain.
For sure. Yes. It's like aliens, like two different species for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. How do we teach our kids to appreciate all we do for them and not feel entitled to everything we can offer?
It's such a tightrope walk, because when we tell them what to appreciate that we've done, it actually does the opposite in their brain. It's kind of like that gratitude journal where you had to write all the things. When we say, you don't know what I've done this and I've done this and I've done this, all they're hearing is Charlie Brown's teacher. But if you can do it in a way and do it as appreciation, say, oh my gosh, son, I'm so excited that you're going to the dance today. I did all your laundry so you'd be able to have your favorite shirt. Then you are telling them what you did, but out of appreciation for them. And, like, oh my gosh, I saw you left your shoes outside and I brought them in so they wouldn't be cold for you this morning because I know you like warm socks. So you can say what you have done for them so they hear it in a different way, because the order that you put the words is the way that they process the words in their head. And when you say, I did this and I did that, you are like powering over them. And you are small and weak and dumb and little, and I'm bigger and better. So another way to get them to appreciate what you've done is to appreciate what they do, because they learn by example and we teach without teaching. And on our refrigerator, we have a little like notepad on our refrigerator, and anybody in the house can write gratitude statements on it. And so we just write like, oh my gosh, thank you for taking out the trash for me this week. I was running behind. Or, Brady, thank you for turning all the lights off when you went to bed. I totally forgot. And so it's the little moments of gratitude that helps them realize, wow, people in this house do a lot that we don't always say thank you for.
And we're role modeling for them. Yeah. If we expect them to be thankful, but we're not thankful. I get that a lot from parents who are like with chores. Well, they're supposed to do it. It's like, well, you're supposed to make sure your kids eat and all that stuff too, but it's not about what we're supposed to do. It's about just being thankful for things that are done for us and vice versa. Okay. Let's see. We have someone who is raising their hands, and we're going to try this feature here and see what happens. Okay. All right. It looks like I still, we can answer this. So some of your topics, cutting, etc., are triggering to my teen who's listening. Okay. So stick to the topic of gratitude. All right. Daughter is an introvert, so it's difficult for her to make new friendships. Sometimes she withdraws into her shell when her close friends are busy with something else. How do we help her deal with it, or maybe make her slightly more extroverted, as in make new friends? That's a big question there.
And I really don't think, which you'll know this too, that if somebody is an introvert, you cannot make them an extrovert. And if somebody is an extrovert, you cannot make them an introvert. And I think when we try to make them be something that they're not, it tells them that what you are is not good enough, and I would like you to be a different way. If, however, somebody is withdrawing because they're sad, or, they don't feel like they have any friends, then maybe you could, take them somewhere where they could see friends, go to the mall with them, or, hey, let's go, get a smoothie or whatever. So you can help them be social. I would also say maybe find out, if you can, some of the reasons why they feel like they don't belong. Is it, something simple like, I don't like the way my hair's cut, or everybody has, new blue earrings and I don't, maybe it's something simple, but to them it's big. So ask some questions. And I would say definitely though, don't tell a shy person they need to not be, because my older son is still to this day very shy, and it used to drive me crazy. And I would say, gosh, son, look them in the eye. And he was like, Mom, it makes my heart start beeping.
Right.
And, that's just not who he is. And he's 30 years old and he still doesn't do it. And
yeah,
it's hard.
Right. Yeah. And for us, if we're, I'm introverted, but if you're an extroverted parent with an introverted child, you're like, why are they not out every weekend? Why are they not hanging out with more people? It's only an issue if your child wants to be hanging out with more people and is not happy with being at home by themselves. So you got to like kind of gauge it as, is your kid okay with that? And then you can always, reach out for a coach. Like I deal with friendship issues. That's my main coaching piece. And there are other people who deal with that. There's books on it if they need help making friends, because it may not be that they're introverted. It may be that they just don't have the skills to make those friends. So let's see. Someone here said Quiet by Susan Cain is a fabulous book for an extrovert parent to introvert child. I absolutely agree. I love that book. Again, that's Quiet by Susan Cain. All right. So we are out of time, Stacy. We have just gabbed for a full hour here. So if parents want to get more information from you, where do they go?
They can go to thegratitudebusiness.com. And I do a free blog every Thursday on Thankful Thursday. And I give gratitude tips and brain tips. And they're all, things that there are practical ways that you can make science simple at your house. And I have a brand new 21-day gratitude boost course that's starting January 1st. That is all practical tips about the brain and how you can learn to rewire your brain and change your lizard to bring gratitude into your home, and lots of ways to create a culture of family gratitude.
Great. And you said that that's for adults, but the teens and tweens could definitely get a lot out of it if they want to join in with their parents.
Yes. I have a lot of mom and daughter teams that do it. And if you're going to join, don't buy two for your child, just do it together. It's super fun. It's fun little things like, Mom, what makes you happy? And it's lots of different games you can play and all that makes you figure out what's grateful.
Oh, that's great. You guys have some great questions, but we have to go because we have to be respectful of everybody's time. I just want to say, for those of you who joined us tonight, keep an eye out for the future webinars offered by the Balance in Mind. We are going to, Stacy's going to be a hard act to follow, but we're going to try to have some amazing speakers on here to get you information that you need. The best way to keep up with when our webinars are is to join our Facebook group. You just go in and search Balance in Mind. And parents, I just want to leave you with a quote from Glenn Close. I always think of Fatal Attraction when I think of her, but she has this great quote. What mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, more unashamed conversation. So thanks to all of you for joining the conversation. And thank you, Stacy, for leading us in such a great webinar tonight.
You are so very welcome. It was my pleasure to be here.
Thank you, everyone. And everyone have a good night. You can always ask more questions in the Facebook group. We'll follow up there. This will be posted in about a week, so you can rewatch it if you want and share it with friends. Everyone, thank you and have a great night.